This must not be the meeting of those who like the tax increase, right? The Lord's Prayer is 66 words long. The Gettysburg Address is 266 words long. The Declaration of Independence is 1,322 words long. But the regulations for the sale of cabbage are 26,000. I brought one of my friends with me, the tax code. 70,000 pages, and some say 30 million words, and getting bigger by the day. So if anybody argues we need more taxes and more tax code, they're not paying attention. We need to cut taxes and eliminate this mess of a tax code. 70,000 pages. 70,000 pages that are chasing American jobs overseas, chasing American companies overseas. Burger King reincorporated in Canada. How do we chase an American company all the way to Canada? We're chasing American companies to Europe. Around the world, they're leaving because of our tax code and our regulatory code, and that we're no longer this beacon of hope and freedom in the world. What happened to us? So you know what I say? Scrap the whole thing. Let's start over. Under my plan, you'll fill out your tax code on one page. One rate, 14.5% for individuals, 14.5% for businesses, and no payroll tax. No FICA. When's the last time we had a nominee who was even for cutting taxes? What I hear from Washington, or what I hear from the leaders in Washington is, oh, we're for revenue neutral tax reform. You know what that means? That means half of you pay more, half of you pay less, and the net effect on the economy is zero. I tell people, if that's what we're for, I'm going home. I'm not interested in traveling the country if we're the party for revenue neutral tax reform. Is anybody going to go and knock on a door for a candidate who says, hey, I'm John Smith and I'm for revenue neutral tax reform? It's not going to do us any good. The question should be about the burden of government. How big government is, how much government we need, not very much, and what are we going to do to make it smaller? I say starve the beast. And when we talk about tax cuts, let's talk about how the money's going to be spent and who's going to spend it. Let's say we've got $50 million. Is it better leaving it in Nevada or sending it to Washington? Let's leave it here. If we're talking about our solution for poverty, our solution for jobs, we've got some cities that are a nightmare. A train wreck, Detroit, 20% unemployment, miles and miles of abandoned homes. Why don't we just simply cut all of the taxes for 10 years and let them bail themselves out? We could help people who live in poverty. We can be the party that helps those who are unemployed if we have a message, but you have to embrace something. Revenue neutral tax reform is not it. So as we look forward, we say, well, how are we going to win? People say to me, they say, well, we have to dilute what we stand for. They say we have to be more like the Democrats. We have to raise taxes before they do. I don't care to be part of the party that raises taxes. Anybody want to be the party that raises taxes? No! We have to argue for the marketplace, argue for capitalism, argue for freedom, argue that, you know what? We are the greatest, freest nation ever, the richest, but you know what? We're also the most humanitarian nation. In 2014, we gave away $384 billion privately, just private charity. We're the richest and the most generous. You don't see anybody from Cuba giving out money, all right? They can barely feed themselves. Communism doesn't work. We should have the debate over the Cold War. How did we win the Cold War? The engine of capitalism beat the engine of socialism. been trying to take the message to places people haven't been hearing it before. I've been taking a message of freedom, a message of privacy, a message that the government should leave you the heck alone. I've taken it to Liberty University, a religious university. I've taken it to Berkeley, maybe a not so religious university. A conservative university and a very liberal university. But you know what? Across the board, kids don't want the government looking at their records. They say to me, what I do or say on my phone is none of their damn business. Right. I feel pretty strongly about this, so I stood for 10.5 hours. I stood for 10.5 hours to protect your right to be left alone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Justice Brandeis wrote about this in 1928 in a case where the Supreme Court got it wrong, which the Supreme Court sometimes gets things wrong. So they got it wrong. The Supreme Court said in 1928 that it was okay for the government to listen to all of your phone calls. Not just collect your records, but listen to all your phone calls. And for 40 years, that was the law of the land because the Supreme Court said it was so. But Justice Brandeis in 1928 was a dissenter. Some of the most famous court cases that everybody should know about are the dissents in our country. Plessy versus Ferguson said that separate but equal was fine. Now almost nobody believes that. I certainly don't believe that. But Justice Harlan wrote in the dissent in 1898 that the Constitution is colorblind, and that we are not a society of a caste system, that everyone is to be treated equally under the law no matter the color of your skin. Likewise, in 1928, when the court case comes before it, Justice Brandeis says that the right to be left alone is the most cherished of rights, to be prized most among civilized men and women. That's what we need to be fighting for. Now, some will say, well, there is no right to privacy in the Constitution. Well, they haven't read the Ninth Amendment then, apparently. The Ninth Amendment says those rights not listed are not to be disparaged. Our rights come to us naturally. I believe from God, but even if you don't believe they come from God, they come to us naturally. They're yours. A majority can't take them away from you. So the majority can't vote to take away your privacy. It's yours. You're born with it. It's part of who you are. But we have to have this debate, because many in our party don't get this in Washington. The vast majority, in fact, one candidate for the president said the thing he most likes about President Obama, we won't say who this is, it's a former governor from Florida. But the thing he most loves about the president is the NSA program to collect all of your phone records without a warrant. We need to have this debate. It's an important debate. We've got people in Nevada. I know Daphne Lee has talked a lot about the idea of... She's talked about it, and I've talked about it. Many others have talked about the idea that no American citizen should ever be detained. That the thing is that we have to think how important it is to have a lawyer, to have a trial. Think about the people... I had this debate, we're having this debate on the Senate floor, and I said, well, you mean you could send an American citizen to Guantanamo Bay without a trial? And I'm having this debate with another Republican, and I don't want to mention any names, but he was a senator from Arizona. And I said, you mean you could send them to Guantanamo Bay without a trial? And he said, yeah, if they're dangerous. I said, sort of begs the question, doesn't it? Who gets to decide who's dangerous and who's not? The Bureau of Justice put out some criteria. You're supposed to, if you see this, report these people to your government, all right? People that have maybe changed the color of their hair. You don't want to see anybody raising their hands or anything. People with stains on their clothing. I thought that might just be a messy eater. People with missing fingers. Gets worse. People like to pay in cash. People have multiple guns in the house. Leather-housed ammunition. But the thing is, if these are the criteria of people we want to report to our government, I damn sure want a lawyer before they come to my house looking for my But here's the thing. We need to think about the times in our history when we haven't done the right thing. When we incarcerated 100,000 Japanese Americans during the war because of the way they looked, just indiscriminately. But that's what this is about. The fight about privacy was about whether or not you generalize or individualize. Whether or not you can look at someone's records because you have suspicion and you've called a judge and you put their name on the warrant, or we could just look at all Japanese Americans, or all Arab Americans, or all Jewish Americans. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want your government to generalize about who they look for. They maybe remember Richard Jewell. Everybody says he was the Olympic bomber. He was convicted on TV. In fact, I think the TV they had to settle up with him because they were wrong. But they destroyed a man in a matter of hours by saying he fit the profile. He wore glasses. I see a few of you out there. He was an introvert. That would not be you, right? But he looked a little different. That could be. But the thing is that everybody said he did it, and then it turned out he didn't do it. But imagine if Richard Jewell had been a black man in the South in the 1920s. So the thing about justice is, we were the party. We always have been the party of justice. We were the party of emancipation, the party of civil rights, the party of the Bill of Rights. We need to take back that mantle, and we need to be the party of justice once again. We are pretty good with the Second Amendment. Of all the 55 Republicans running for president, probably 50 out of 55 are good on the Second Amendment. But you know, we got to be about the whole Bill of Rights. The Fourth Amendment's about the right to privacy, and frankly, very few, if any of them, are very good on the right to privacy. But the Fifth and Sixth Amendments are also popular too, and also important. And I call these the Justice Amendments. The Fifth Amendment says that they can't take your stuff away from you. They can't incarcerate you. They can't do things to you without due process. They can't take your property without just compensation. But we've slipped away from that. We had another Supreme Court decision that was a bad one, Kelo versus New London. And in that case, they said that, okay, you've got a condo, and a big company wants your condo, wants your land. And they basically rationalized that property was more important to give to the person who paid the more taxes. So if you had a church, there have been these cases in California, go figure, California, in California where they've condemned a church to give it to a box store because the box store will pay taxes and the church is not paying taxes. That's not the way I understand property rights. Property should never, ever be taken from one private property owner and given to another by the government. But it's not just big business or businesses that are having their property taken from them. Very commonly in our country, it's the poor, the underprivileged, the ones who don't have a lawyer. Civil asset forfeiture is another way the government takes your money. Right. You can be driving down the street and the government says you made an unsafe lane change, and they say, do you have any money? And you say, well, I've got $1,000, I'm going to get a tooth fixed. And they say, give me your money. And you have to give your money to them through threat of force. And then they say, well, if you sign this little piece of paper that says you won't sue us to get your money back, we'll give you half back right now. That sounds a little more like highway robbery than it does government. But this is disproportionately happening. The Washington Post looked at this, and it's disproportionately happening to poor people and African Americans. Why don't we be the party that is the champion of poor people, the champion of people who don't have a lawyer, who don't have the ability to defend themselves, and say to the government, because we already know big government messes a lot of things up, let's say to big government that's taking criminal justice, turning it on its head, and taking money from people who have never been even charged with anything often, and say, guess what? In our country, in America, you are innocent until proven guilty. The Sixth Amendment says you not only get a right to a trial by jury, you get a right to a speedy trial by jury. There was a young man by the name of Kalief Browder, 16 years old, young black kid from the Bronx. He was accused of a crime and put in Rikers Island. He spent 3 years there without ever being tried. 3 years in prison. 2 years of it was in solitary confinement. He was beaten by gangs in prison. This shouldn't happen in America. Who's standing up for his rights? But we need to realize when we see this anger, this sort of seething anger that's in our cities, violence isn't justified. Now, I'm not up here to justify violence, but if you don't understand where that anger is coming from, imagine if you're Kalief Browder or his mom or people that knew him in high school that said, gosh, he went to jail for 3 years and he was never tried. The person who accused him of a crime wasn't even in the country legally. It was no longer there when they finally got to trial. They dismissed all charges. But Kalief Browder committed suicide about 2 weeks ago. That shouldn't happen in our country. But the thing is that when we become the party that protects the Sixth Amendment as much as we do the Second Amendment, we are going to rock, we are going to roll, and we are going to be the dominant party in this country. In about a month or so, we're going to begin having debates, presidential debates, and you will hear a lot of back and forth, and I imagine I'll be on the receiving end of some of this. But the thing is I'm proud of being different. I'm proud of being the one candidate who will stand up and say, no president should ever take a country to war without the approval of Congress. And that's not a statement of weakness, that's a statement of strength. It's exactly what Ronald Reagan said. Ronald Reagan talked about peace through strength, and he talked about having a national defense so strong as to deter attack, to repel attack, to prevent people from attacking us, and to let them know that there will be no quarter if you attack America. But the thing is, Ronald Reagan wasn't eager for war. And as he became president and went through the presidency, he went through many trials and tribulations, and he finally decided, you know what, the Middle East is a very confusing place, and it may not be easily solvable. The Sunnis and the Shiites have been killing each other for 1,000 years. They probably will kill each other for another 1,000 years. And I'm not saying do nothing and just let it go on. I'm saying protect America, protect American interests, have Congress vote on it, and we decide what we need to do as a nation, and we do it. But I had dinner with a Navy SEAL the other day, and I came away with a message I think that was pretty strong from him. He's been in 19 years and served his country, started as an enlisted man and worked his way up. But he said, we do fine defending ourselves, stopping the people who attack us. But he said our problems begin when we plant the flag and try to create a nation.
Right.
They asked one of the candidates the other day, they said, well, are you for nation building? And he said, no, I'm just for building nations, but I'm not for either one of them, okay? I'm for using the military when we need to defend ourselves, to fight wars, but not to build bridges and schools for the whole world. We can't even look. You've got trouble having enough money for education in Nevada. Maybe if we weren't sending so much money to Pakistan, you'd have money left over.
That's right.
If there's one true thing that we can learn from the Middle East, and we should learn from past experience, they asked one of the candidates, they said, knowing what you know now, would you go back into Iraq? And it's like, my goodness, certainly we've all learned that lesson, haven't we? That really what happened when we topple these secular strongmen is you get chaos, civil war, and the rise of radical Islam. Who is dominating Iraq right now? Radical Islam. What is the fight? Radical Sunni Islam versus Shiites. Before the war, Hussein was somewhat of a check against Iran. Now Iran has troops in Iraq. Is Iran stronger or weaker since the Iraq War? Is Iraq more stable or less stable since the Iraq War? All of these questions you can ask about Libya as well. Hillary Clinton's war in Libya. Are we more safe or less safe? The place is a mess. It is chaotic. Our embassy fled. Our ambassador was assassinated. That was bad enough. But you know what I really blame Hillary Clinton for more than just the assassination, although she has and should share responsibility there? It's that for 9 months they asked for more security. Denied. Started in the spring before the assassination. About 6 months before the assassination, she brought home 6 Special Forces guys. A month later, she brought home 6 more. The theory was, and you can see how this comes from these politically correct people on the left, it's like she didn't want them to show guns because the freedom fighters might be offended to think that we had to defend ourselves when freedom fighters were everywhere. First of all, these freedom fighters, many of them were in prison. They've been in prison in Iraq. We had captured them previously as terrorists. Some of them associated with Al-Qaeda. Some of them still radical jihadists. And somebody now is calling them freedom fighters. None of them ever liked us. None of them were ever our friends. And we made a mistake. We toppled another secular strongman and you get chaos. And now the country's a failed state. But as it goes on for 6 months before the assassination of the ambassador, you get to about the summertime before that. And what's the State Department spending money on? They blame Republicans, say, you didn't give us enough money. Untrue. But what are they spending their money on? They spend $650,000 on Facebook ads. Seems they don't have enough friends. They spend $700,000 landscaping the embassy in Brussels. They spent $5 million on crystal barware and glassware for the embassies. Meanwhile, the people who were over there said, we'd like a DC-3 to be able to move about the country and flee if we need to. Denied. About 3 days after they denied the plane, you know what the State Department approved, Hillary Clinton approved? An electrical charging station for all the Chevy Volts that they had imported to Vienna. So they don't have enough money for a war zone, but they've got enough money because they're showing how green they are. Over in Vienna, they ordered $100,000 for a charging station. They sent 3 comedians to India on the Make Chai, Not War tour. My God, who the hell was in charge of the State Department? So it gets to August. You're about a month before the assassination, and there's a 16-man personnel team. Colonel Wood. You've probably seen him interviewed. He said, we're in danger. The ambassador said we're in danger. We're in danger of being overrun. They brought him home too, against his wishes. He was told to come home. Now you know who was protecting the embassy or the consulate in Benghazi? The February 17th militia. Some local group of probably Al-Qaeda protecting our embassy. When the people came to attack us, whoosh, they were gone. There was nobody there. So when Hillary Clinton came before my committee, I wasn't really very happy with her. And I said, you know what? For 9 months they begged for help. I said, did you read the cables from the ambassador leading up to the assassination? And she kind of acted put off as if, you know, she was too bothered. You know, she was too busy traveling to be able to read these cables. And I said, look, you know what? Your dereliction of duty, your lack of providing the defense for the embassy should forever preclude Hillary Clinton from serving in high office. But realize when we have this debate on the stage, when you have all 54 Republicans up there, realize that almost every one of them wanted the war in Libya, and their only complaint about Obama and Clinton was they didn't send enough troops. They wanted to be there. They think intervention is always the answer. There's one senator who believes right now that we should be in 6 to 8 countries with troops. They're trying to pass a resolution on ISIS, which I do support military force against ISIS. but they're trying to pass a resolution that would allow them also to be in Nigeria, Libya, all across northern Africa, and all across the Middle East. And I think we have to have a discussion amongst ourselves. Who is the enemy? Where are they? And where are we going to be fighting before we say we're going all out for worldwide war with troops in 30 countries? So we need to do a better job. We have to have a debate about whether or not we are going to spend an infinite amount of money on anything. I don't think you can project power around the world from bankruptcy court. Admiral Mullen, a career military man, obviously a patriot, obviously believes in this country as I do, said, number one threat to our national security is our debt. So if we keep borrowing, I mean, can you really be a strong country borrowing money from China to do anything? Even if it's what we need to do to defend the country, can you borrow to bolster your defense? So we've been having this debate. We had this debate among a couple of the candidates. And one candidate said, we're going to increase defense by X. And I said, well, if we have to, we have to. But you have to correspondingly cut domestic spending by that. I put that forward as an alternative. Like 4 people voted with me. Most people just want to vote blindly for money, for anything, but it's making us weaker and it's endangering the future of our country. We borrow $1 million a minute. But what I want to tell you is that there is great hope for our country if we believe in ourselves again, if we believe in our founding documents, if we believe that through freedom we can prosper, with freedom and liberty we can be secure. I want to be the one who says that through hope and optimism, through the passion of the Bill of Rights, we bring a whole generation of new people into our party, and that we begin to win to lead this country out of this malaise. I want to be there doing that, and I hope you want to be there with me. Thank you.